Hello friends, today's discussion we are going to talk about another very important measurement tool which is used in case of the social or behavioral research, that is knowledge test. So, in the previous a number of the previous classes we are discussing about the different methods which can be used for the measurement. So, I introduced that measurement tools in terms of the objective, test and scales, and we differentiated between what test is, what scale is, what index is, okay. And initially I told that index and scale often confused with each other and they are different, and the similar way the test and scale, okay, they are also different, though they are used to measure the different psychological aspect of human being or different psychological process. So, again to remind you, so most used method or instrument for measuring variables in case of the social or behavioral research is the test or scale. So, both test and scale, they are a set of stimulus or the set of question for the in layman's language. Okay. So, now test is, it is a systematic procedure in which individual tested it presented with a set of constructed stimuli, and the individual who is being tested, he need to provide answer to the particular stimuli based on competency. In case of scale also, okay, it is again a set of symbols, numerals, okay. So, that is constructed to measure the behavioral aspect of the, again on the individual or human being, okay. But that aspect of competency, that is missing in case of the scale. Okay. So, what are the difference? If you look into the, that means test and scale, they have certain difference, okay. Though these two terms sometimes they are used together, okay. So, now the first difference as I was talking about, okay, the test should be based on competency, that means it reflects the ability of the respondent, okay, or the person being tested to present the correct answer to a specific item or question. Now, scales, that is also used for measuring certain mental construct, okay. So, there is no correct or wrong answer in case of the scale, okay. So, here the answer of the respondent is generally in terms of endorsement of an alternatives or intensity of the endorsements, means magnitude of the endorsements, okay. Like if I have positive opinion, okay, how much positive opinion I have, okay. So, that is the degree, it may be I am highly positive, okay, or it may be I am positive, but in between, okay. So, or I am neither positive nor I am opposed to that, okay, means I have neutral idea or I cannot express my opinion with this particular cognitive object, okay. So, that is the first difference, okay. What is that means the test always have a meaning of competition, success, failure, okay. But in case of the test, okay, so this feeling of competition aspect is not there, okay. Now, so these two, okay, these are the two important difference, okay. What is the third difference? That is the arrangement of the item, okay, especially in case of the when you are using the rating type of scale, okay. So, where the which is one of the mostly used measurement tool in case of the social scientific research, okay. So, there is a chance that you will only answer to a certain part of the that scale, means what happened, okay. So, there are a set of, in case of the scale there used to be a set of question, okay. Now, each of the question you have to express your opinion or express your mental process in terms of the intensity, okay. Like the example I was giving just little before, okay, that whether I hold positive or negative attitude towards a particular object, like towards the adopting organic farming, okay, in case of the agriculture, okay, like farmers attitude towards adopting organic farming, or my attitude towards adopting entrepreneurship after the completion of the BSc agriculture or your BSc degree, okay. So, now how much you endorse that particular idea, okay. So, that is generally measured on a ordinal scale against which is provided with this particular question, okay. So, now there are tendency of the respondent, okay, or there are tendency of the human being sometimes, okay, we endorse in the similar pattern, okay. Like you may face the teacher who always give the little bit lower marks to the students, or there are teacher who is very generous in case of the providing marks. Okay. So this can be, there are people, okay, who always want to stay in the neutral position. So this is also possible in case of the response also. So we call this, in the terms of the scientific research or social scientific research, we call it response set bias. Okay. To avoid that particular bias, what we do, we generally randomize the positive and negative questions in a scale. Okay. So that means the arrangement of the items or arrangement of the question in case of the scale, that is based on the randomization. Okay. So but in case of the test, the items are arranged from the simple to the difficult. Okay. It is arranged in terms of the increasing order of the difficulty. Okay. So these are the sum of the important difference, okay, between the test and scale. Okay. So now based on this difference between the test and scale, we can make one comment that all tests are scale, but not all the scales they cannot be classified as a test. Okay. So now proceed further. Okay. So knowledge test is an instrument used in the social science to measure the competency. Okay. So like as a student, okay, usually going through exam, okay, midterm exam, sessional exam, end term exam, class test, okay, so those all are basically type of knowledge test. Okay. So knowledge test that is directed towards, or that is basically devised to measure the acquirement of the knowledge, or it is the gain of the knowledge on a certain subject area. Okay. So as simple as that, means knowledge test is designed to measure the knowledge or how much information. If you take in our traditional education system, okay, sometimes knowledge is basically measured, or knowledge is basically measured by that how much information you can actually remember. Okay. So now there is a difference between the information and the knowledge. Okay. So when you internalize that information, okay, and use that information for the certain problem solving, so it become an knowledge. Okay. So now, so this knowledge test is basically, okay, that should be designed in a such a way, it is not only questions are not only related to the facts. Okay. Here the question should be such that the respondent need to dig inside his mind, okay, run his mental process to solve that particular problem. Okay. So in that way, that the exam, okay, the exam which is where this critical question are asked, okay, so that can be again classified as a knowledge test. Okay. So now how we develop a knowledge test? Okay. So this knowledge test development process again, okay, so generally knowledge test construct, or it is comprised of a number of questions. Okay. So now which type of question should be included into the knowledge test? Okay. So there are certain statistical procedure, or there are certain procedural approach, okay, which need to be followed to devise a knowledge test for the purpose of the research. Okay. Like in case of the question design, okay, so your teacher, maybe certain question come the very easy, or some of the question it is very difficult. Okay. So looking into that particular aspect, okay, that the students need to be tested in both the answering the simple question by answering the difficult question also. So knowledge test also follow this simple logic. Okay. So the items are devised in such a way, so there will be item, okay, which can differentiate between a person, okay, who is knowledgeable or who have certain less amount of the knowledge. Okay. So we will come to all these steps one by one. Okay. So what of the first step of the knowledge test development is that item collection. Okay. Item means the question that should be included into your knowledge test. Okay. So initial, as I already told, that initial selection of the item should be not based on, or not merely based on memorization. Okay. So the question you are putting, the answer of those need not to be, or that should not be only based on the facts. Okay. That should be based on the critical thinking process, or question should be such that it can arouse the critical thinking process within the mind of the targeted respondent. Okay. And secondly, as I told, that the question should be such that it can differentiate between the well informed respondent or knowledgeable respondent from the person or the respondent who have poor knowledge in the subject under research. Okay. The item which are included into this knowledge test, okay, that should be, okay, that should be checked with the subject matter expert. Okay. Secondly, the item must be according to the purpose of the study. Okay, because it is an research study. Okay, here we are talking about the knowledge test from the research point of view. Okay, so objective of the study, whether it is you are using knowledge test, whether you are using any type of measurement tool, that should be the objective of the study. Okay, and during the development of the knowledge test, the researcher must have good idea about the education level of the respondent. Okay, whether they can actually be tested on those particular construct area where you are trying to measure through the knowledge test. In this process, okay, so you must have the idea about the existing knowledge level of the respondent. Okay, and what should be the item type? So knowledge test item should not be monotonous type. Okay, it should be omnibus type, means the different type of item like the rating scale, pictorial item, okay, the problem solving, fill in the blanks, okay, multiple choice, okay. So all different type of item, yes no type, okay, so agreement disagreement type. So this particular all type of item must be included into the knowledge test. Okay, that means the item should be objective form, yes no form, true false form, multiple choice form, fill in the blanks form, etc., etc. Okay, so this is the you have to remember when you are developing a knowledge test. Okay, so second, what is the second step? Second step is the screening out the statement after consultation with the expert. So first you have to develop or you have to collect the item with the consultation of the expert as well as your review of the literature in the existing knowledge area. Okay, secondly, again after collecting the number of items, that should be screened or that should be sent to the expert for their screening. Okay, when I discussed about the reliability and validity, I told that most of the validity study or one of the most used validity type is the content validity, that is expert judgment on the relevancy of that particular item to that particular universe or to the universe of that particular construct. Okay, so in this stage you can utilize that content validation process to actually screen out the item which represent the particular knowledge area you are trying to measure through development or use of the knowledge test. After you getting screened, the item getting screened, okay, next step is the item analysis. So in this stage, item analysis stage is generally carried out on a group of the potential respondent. Okay, not actual sample, okay, a separate sample which are similar to the study population, okay, but the final study will not be carried out on them. Okay, so they are just equivalent to the population you are trying to study through the process of the knowledge test. Okay, so in them or in actual or in simulated respondent, okay, so knowledge test is generally used or administered and you get that among your respondent, okay, how many of them are getting the correct answer, how many are getting the wrong answer. Okay, so in case of the knowledge test, as there is an sense of the competition or sense of the right or wrong answer, so we need to provide that we need to code that knowledge test answer into that way, means 0 is given generally for the wrong answer, 1 is given for the right answer, and after you getting this response out of this simulated group of the respondent. Okay, so generally it followed with the item analysis stage. Now item analysis itself has the 3 distinct steps. Okay, one is the item difficulty, second is the item discrimination, and last one is the point biserial correlation that talk about the internal consistency of the response. Okay, so now first starting with the difficulty index. So what difficulty index is? Okay, so difficulty index basically indicate that the extent of which the item is difficult. Okay, it is in simple terms, in layman's terms, it means that how many of the respondent, okay, how many of the respondent or proportion of the respondent answer a particular item of the knowledge test in a right way, or proportion of the respondent who fail to answer a particular question in a right way. Okay, so for the inclusion of the item in the knowledge test, okay, item should be such, okay, that either it is not too easy, okay, that all the person will give the right answer to them, okay, or it should not be neither too difficult, means only the few member of your respondent able to give the right answer to that particular question. So both of the extremes should be avoided. Okay, so what is the formula of or what is the mathematical formula you need to calculate this difficulty index? That is this difficulty index, okay, if you represent it by the p, okay, p is equal to nc by n into 100. Okay, nc simply means number of respondent who correctly answered, okay, divided by the total number of respondent. That means, as I told, it is the proportion of the respondent, okay, who answered that particular question in the correct manner into, when you multiply it with the 100, it will convert to the percentage term. Okay, so as a acceptable rule, so the difficulty index value should range from the 30 to 80. means if the item should not be such that the less than 30% of the respondent answering that particular item right, that means it is too difficult, or more than 80% of the respondent are actually getting that particular item right. So, again it is too easy. So, after calculation of the item difficulty index, it generally followed by the calculation of the item discrimination index. So, this item discrimination index, what is the purpose of this calculating or estimating this item discrimination index? So, item discrimination index basically indicate that whether the item you are selecting that is differentiating between the a well informed person or well knowledgeable person to the a poorly informed or poor knowledgeable person. So, now what you need to do to calculate this item discrimination index? First you need to arrange your respondent from there by using their total score. We arrange them in the ascending order, from starting from the smallest score to the highest score. And now the whole pool of the respondent so should be divided into 6 group, and we generally give the term G1, G2, G3, G4 based on their score. Means we will start with the smallest score because it is arranged in the ascending order, and we will proceed towards the highest score. So, G1 and G2 they have the lowest score, G3 and G4 those are the middle category, and G5 and G6 those are the group those are the group of the respondent who get the highest score. And now the two middle group, that means the G3 and G4 is eliminated, and remaining 4 terminal group, that is G1, G2, G5 and G6, those are kept for the item calculation or estimating the item discrimination index. So, now traditionally item discrimination index can be used or can be calculated. So, there are a number of, you may in the literature or in the research literature you may find out different formulas or different mathematical equation which are used for the calculating the item discrimination index. So, here what I presented, that is also one of the mostly used one. So, here this discrimination index is calculated by the frequency of the correct answer in the high group minus, or it is generally subtracted from the frequency of the correct answer in the low group, and it is divided by the total number of the respondent by 3. So, this is the simple formula. So, now after calculating the item discrimination index, so the next step which it followed, that is the calculation of the point biserial coefficient. So, what the point biserial coefficient is? It is in the terms of the statistics, it is point biserial correlation generally used between when there is a dichotomous item and when there is a continuous item. So, the point biserial correlation is the correlation between the right and wrong score that student receive on a given item and the total score that the student receive when summing up their score. That means, maybe there are 5 items in a knowledge test. So, now each of the, and there are maybe 5 respondent also. So, now for the item 1, if the respondent he may get all the 5 question right. Maybe the second respondent he may get that particular item, he may get the 4 question right, 1 question of the wrong. So, his score is the 4, and for the item his score is 1. So, now in each of the item the score is generally calculated, as I told already, by using 1 or 0, either right answer or the wrong answer. So, point biserial correlation, again it is the correlation between a dichotomous variable and a continuous variable. Now, when you take the total score, that is basically a continuous variable. Now, when you take the score in each of the item, so it is an dichotomous variable. So, point biserial correlation is the correlation between a person's answer in a particular item and the total score. Now, what is why you need to calculate this point biserial correlation? The interpretation of the point biserial correlation is that like it is acceptable that if a particular respondent or if a particular student if he receive high score in a particular or high score in the total whole of the test, so there is a chance that particular item we are testing, so he will get that particular item right also, or it may be opposite also, like if a particular student who get a very low score in the total test, so their probability to get a particular item right must be low. So, it is not a problem. Now, if it is vice versa, means a person or a particular student who is scoring very low in the overall test, but getting a particular item right, that means there is a chance factor operating there. Okay. So, that is the anomaly point. Point biserial correlation basically calculate that particular aspect, okay, estimate that particular aspect. That means, okay, so whether there is any anomaly in the answering that particular answering the items of a knowledge test, okay, by based on their the total score received by the each of the respondent. Okay. So, that is why it is always required to the use most of the cases, okay, students stop their or student construct their knowledge test by going through the after the initial screening using the relevancy different relevancies method, okay. They generally followed with the item difficulty index calculation and then the item discrimination index calculation, and based on that they decide that this particular test is in final form and that should be used in the in a final research among the final sample he selected for the research study, okay. But it always should be followed up by this point biserial correlation coefficient, okay, to actually without any chance of the anomaly in the answering the questions. So, this is the simple formula of the this point biserial correlation, okay. It is as I told, okay, it is the simply it is the correlation between the score received in a particular item, okay, and the total score received by a respondent, okay. So, it will be much clear when we take the when you try to do it, okay, in the using the Excel sheet, okay. So, we will try it for your easy understanding, okay. I already put the this particular number here, okay. So, now it is from the from a research study, okay, which is carried out by one of the our research scholar, okay, that first we generally start with the, okay, for the purpose of the study let's rearrange the data in the actual form, okay. Okay. So, this is the data set for the which where the knowledge test was basically constructed, his items were tested or items were screened by using the any relevancy scoring method, okay. Then we maybe a test basically come out with an here in this test there are total 23 items, okay, and this particular test was administered on a sample of the 30 people, okay. Again 30 is sometimes we take the 30 sample, okay, because it statistically it is the more than 30 is the large sample size, but that should not be used, again to remind you, that should not be used for the sample size calculation for your study, okay. So, now I have the data and the respondent was ranked according to their given serial number, okay. Now, after getting this data where this 1 basically represent the here 0 represent the wrong answer, 1 represent the right answer to the knowledge item, okay, and there are total 23 knowledge item, okay. And after that what you need to do? You need to do the total, okay. So, if you take the it is the what is the total value, that is the basically the summation of the score received by a particular respondent, okay. So, the first respondent what is his total score, that is the he get 10, okay. In the same way if you drag it, okay, it is already here, but for your demonstration, okay, if you drag it you will get the total score of the each of the respondent, okay. So, how many respondent is there? There are 30 respondent for our where the knowledge test was initially administered, okay. So, after that what you need to do? The first thing you need to calculate the item difficulty index and the item discrimination index, okay. So, but before doing that what you need to do? You need to divide the group into 6 group based on their total score, okay. So, total score it should be from the ascending order, means from the lowest score to the highest score, okay. So, if you arrange it again, okay, if you arrange it again, so here the again the respondent, okay, you from the serial number you will find out the respondent were arranged based on the score received in the test, like 2, 6, 7, okay, those are the lowest score. Now, here 30 respondent are there, you need to divide it into 6 equal group, okay. So, each group will there will be 5 sample or 5 respondent will be in each group, like G1, okay, the lowest score who get the respondent who get the lowest score, they will be classified in the G1, okay. Here you will find this 5 of the respondent, they are in the G1 group, okay. Similarly, G2 is there, G3 is there, G4 is there, G5 is there, G6 is there, each of this group comprised of the 5 respondent, okay. Now, what is the next step? I told that for the calculation of the discrimination index, okay, you need to only the score of the lowest scorer group 2 group and the highest scorer 2 group, means G1, G2 and G5 and G6, okay. So, now what we will do in the next step, we will divide, you will only take the response of the G1, G2 and G4 and G6, okay. So, here I put the response of the G1, G2 and G5 and G6 on this particular 23 knowledge questions or items. Okay. Now, next what you need to do, you need to calculate the item difficulty index. Okay. Item difficulty index simply means that how many of your respondent answered that question correctly. Okay. So, for particularly the purpose of this for calculating the item difficulty index, okay, so you should use the original data. Okay. So, what is the item difficulty index, how it is calculated? The first step is that to count that how many person get that particular question or give the right answer to that particular question. Okay. So, what you will do, you will go to the more function in the statistical and then you will simply use the count if. Okay. So, count if basically tells you that how many of the respondent get that give right answer to that particular question. Okay. So, if you put that your criteria is 1, okay, that means the 10% give the right answer. Okay. So, I told what is the item difficulty index, it is simply the proportion of the respondent who give right answer to a question. So, what will be the right answer? Okay. So, item difficulty index, that will be this divided by how many respondent was there, it was 30 respondent, okay, divide into 100 33. Okay. In the similar way, if you extend that, you will get the item difficulty index for the all right answer for the all the items, all the question, and item difficulty index for the all the question. Okay. So, now next step is that the calculation of the item discrimination index. Okay. So, what is item discrimination index? It is the difference between the score of the highest group and lowest group divided by n by 3, that is used for the as one of the estimator of the item discrimination index. Okay. So, what I do? Okay, I separate out the each of the group like G1, G2, G3, G4, all of this, okay, and their total score are already calculated. Okay. So, it is required for the again for the next step, that is the point biserial correlation. Okay. Now, okay, we will come to that particular part. So, next what you need to do, that is discrimination index. So, discrimination index, how we going to do that? So, here I arrange the data the item wise. Okay. That means, in case of the item 1, how many of the G1 group give the right answer, how many of the G2 group give the right answer, how many of the G5 group give the right answer, and how many of the G6 group, okay, give the right answer. So, for that purpose what you need to do, you need to separate each of the particular group, like here I put the response of the group 1. Okay. Now, after separating out the each of the group, what you need to do? You need to do that how many of them actually give the right answer to that particular amount. So, here the each of the group comprised of the 5 respondent. Okay. So, here I calculated by using the countif formula of the Excel. Okay, I calculated that how many of the G1 group give the right answer to the item 1 or question 1. So, 1 of them give the right answer. Similarly, in the second one you get the 2 of them give the right answer. In that way you get the data for the, or you calculate this right answer number of person who give the right answer for each of these 4 group, okay, separately. And after that, okay, you just copy that particular item and put it here in the according to the item. So, here I change the orientation, here there are 23 items and I give the data from the each of the group, like in case of the item 1, in the G1 group only one right answer was there, okay, in G2 it was the second right answer. So, item discrimination index formula you remember, that is the G5 plus G6, okay, that means the frequency of the respondent who give the right answer in a particular item in the highest group, like it is the highest group is the G5 and G6, okay, that is 3 plus 2 minus, okay, it is the G1 and G2, okay, that means 1 plus 1, okay, and divided by how many items were there, 30 items, okay. So, I put 30 by 3, okay. Now, if you drag it, so you will get the item discrimination index for the all this particular item, okay. So, what is the next step? So, next step is the calculation of the point biserial correlation, okay. Now, again for point biserial correlation I put the original data of the total respondent, like here after screening out there was 20 respondent was there. So, to all the 20 respondent data are put here, okay. Then it is basically an correlation between the total score and the score in the item, okay. So, for that what you need to do, okay. So, you know the response pattern of each of the respondent in a particular item. So, one for the first item, okay, that the respondent 1 give the wrong answer, in that way it is the original data. So, what you need to do, you need to calculate the second, in the second step you need to calculate that the total score minus the score in a particular item. Okay. So, where do we get the total score? We already calculated the total score in the, when you get that. So, for the first respondent the total score was the 2. Okay. So, first item how we are going to calculate? So, that will be this 2 minus the score he received in this particular item. Okay. So, it is the 2 minus 0. Okay. So, that is again remain 2, and then after getting this particular data, means for each of the item you get this data, you need to calculate the correlation coefficient. Okay. So, correlation coefficient between, so how to do that? Again you can directly go there, or you can equal to correlation correl. Okay. What is the array 1? That is the actual response, or what is the array 2? This one means his total score minus his response in that particular score. Okay, we will cover that, enter. Okay. So, that is the correlation coefficient between this response in a particular item to the total response. Now, if you extend that, okay. So, here if you delete this one, like for all these items. So, these are the point biserial correlation coefficient. Okay. It is as simple. Okay. After you get these particular values, item difficulty value, item discrimination index value, and the point biserial correlation, what you need to do in the next step? Okay. So, you need to go to the standard cutoff values. What are the cutoff values? The item difficulty index for selection of the item in the final knowledge test. Okay. So, item difficulty index should be between the 30 to 70. Okay. 30 to 80 is also sometimes accepted, but it should not be more than 80. Okay. So, item discrimination index, again it should be between the 0.30 to 0.80. Okay. And the point biserial correlation, that should not be less than 0.15. So, that are the cutoff criteria. So, again going back to the Excel sheet, now for the first item, what is the item discrimination, item difficulty index? That is 33.33. Okay. It is more than 30. Okay. Now, then we will go to the item discrimination index. What it is? It is 0.30. Okay. And what is the value of this point biserial correlation? It is 0.28. Okay. So, all these things are in put into this one particular in the same places. Okay. You can decide about each of the item. So, now for the first item it is acceptable. The second item, again it have the difficulty index of the 55. Okay. Discrimination index of 0.3 and 0.21 is the point biserial correlation coefficient. Again it can be selected. Okay. For the third item, okay, difficulty index is 55. Okay. It is within the criteria. Now, the discrimination index is minus 0.1. Okay. So, and also if you look into the point biserial correlation coefficient, it is also 0.08. Okay. That means this item should not be included into a knowledge test. Okay. So, in this way we actually decided about we constructed our final knowledge test and administered it on our targeted sample. After you calculate this or finalize your knowledge test, okay, so it should be also tested for the reliability. Okay. So, I already in some previous classes we discussed in detail about the reliability and how to calculate that. So, you have to remember that this knowledge test, in case of the knowledge test, retest reliability should not be used. Okay. So, if you are using the retest reliability also, it should be used by using the equivalent form, not the same knowledge test, because in the retesting it will automatically the score will be high. Okay. So, it is better to use the internal consistency reliability. So, for that you can use the Spearman-Brown or the split-up method, or you can calculate the convex alpha also. Okay. So, now after that, after getting the reliability score, you can finalize your knowledge test. So, with this we will conclude our today's lecture. So, in the today's discussion we talked about what is knowledge test, okay, what is the difference between a test and a scale, and what are the steps involved to construct a knowledge test, from the item collection to the initial screening by using the relevancy scoring method. Okay, then it is the calculation of the item analysis that comprised of the item, calculating the item difficulty index, item discrimination index, and supported by the point biserial correlation coefficient to detect any anomaly in the answering pattern of a particular item to the total score of a particular respondent. So, and it should be the knowledge test is generally finalized after calculating or after estimating the reliability coefficient. Mostly the internal consistency reliability is used for the the finding out the reliability coefficient. So, with this we will conclude our today's lecture. So, as always you can go through this particular textbook for further in depth knowledge in this particular subject, and with this, thank you.